say, oh my God, the life that can open up for me if I step into that integrity, if I devote myself wholly to that process, I'd be a fool not to. I can't wait to get in those doors, particularly through the practice of Sundo. It's almost like they came in with clouds, and there's like this light, there's this presence that's there. So the person is in every metric that we would think of, they're more vibrant.
Correcting this spiritual relationship that had been broken for me was what really was able to land me in a place of feeling a sense of love for myself that I couldn't wrap my head around before. It's a powerful shift for people to go from, I have a problem that needs fixing, to this problem has the potential to lead me into a reawakening to my true self.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Broken Beautiful Me, stories of hope, gratitude, and resilience. And this is our sacred space for honest conversations and soul-deep healing. Today, I am so fortunate to have as my guests Greg Vorst and Michael Nolan. Greg and Michael are co-founders of Embodied Recovery, a treatment center in Silicon Valley, helping people transform addiction and mental health struggles into soul growth and empowered living. Their empowered living teachings blend psychology, ancient wisdom, and embodied practices, drawing from therapy, 12-step recovery, and Sundo, which is a Korean Taoist breathwork. They guide clients to reconnect with inner wisdom and healing. Greg and Michael, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're delighted to be here.
I'm so excited to talk about your work. It integrates, three components. What was the spark that led you to weave those different traditions into one holistic approach?
Mm-hmm. It's making me think about a conversation that we had early on about the importance of process and practice.
I think in some sense, it happened organically because these were paths that Mike and I ventured on. So we often joke that our struggles probably encompass the whole spectrum, from all of the challenges you could have with substance use or mental health challenges. And so we had our own path of recovery, and we were trying out things and really trying to figure out what could support us in our own transformation process. And so those were all things that we had picked up along the way. I think Michael had more early experience in 12 steps than I did. I was kind of a latecomer to that. And I had done a lot of work in breath work and in a lot of the spiritual seeking and the ancient wisdom teachings that make up our Empowered Living teaching series. Those were all things that I had found as a seeker. But I think primarily we tried it all in our own lives and experienced the fruits of it, and then began offering service to others.
And so, like Greg was saying, on the spectrum of self-destruction, we really covered that spectrum quite fully in ways to direct our lives in unconstructive ways. And so, Greg spent a lot of time in spiritual communities. I spent a lot of time in 12-step communities, namely Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, as a result of really struggling in early life and not knowing how to get out of these places in which I felt so stuck, and wanting some outside force to pick me up out of that stuck experience, and coming face to face with the demand to unstick myself was a really frustrating proposition.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you came together and really formed this very creative, intuitive treatment modality that combines both journeys.
Yeah.
What made you decide, okay, we've gone on our own path, and we feel confident in our recovery, and now we're going to turn around and help other people?
Yeah. Well,
Confident might be a stretch, but
yeah, there were there's a couple stages in that. I think there's a certain point in the growth, my experience in the entering into workshops and doing work on oneself, where you can hit a plateau and it becomes clear that the next stage of growth is really supporting others in their journey. So, I had taken so many workshops and attended so many things and done different programs and so forth. But then the bigger leap into owning a treatment center, Mike and I never saw that coming. We were working in the field and were quite happy doing the work. But we ran into these experiences where individuals who were owning treatment programs that we worked for, or sometimes the team, were themselves really active and struggling with their addiction or codependency issues. And so it really forced an issue for us where we felt that the work was sacred. We wanted to protect it, and it needed to be happening in places where there was a lot of integrity. And we were continuing to find that the leadership team was really struggling in that area. So we didn't see ourselves as, we're going to be leaders in the field. And then, particularly with my own sort of ACA adult child issues, the last thing I wanted to do was be out front and lead. And there just became a moment where we recognized there needs to be an adult in the room. And we're the two people that are willing to step forward and do that. And in fact, we're going to create a treatment center where there's such a focus for the team and for the leadership team to all be involved in their own personal recovery, so it's a safe space. And so that's how the moniker Embodied Recovery came. It wasn't just we're going to be helping others, but we're going to be active in that process. And but it was a surprise to us.
And to say that everybody needs to be in recovery, it doesn't mean that everybody needs to have their own history of substance use issues or addiction. But we're needing our team to be working a program of recovery, whether that's adult children of alcoholics or Codependence Anonymous or AA or NA, some form of recovery that they are working on themselves to get to that place where they're working through their personal issues. Because what we experienced oftentimes was clinicians and program directors taking a stance of, I'm the healed one, I'm the professional, you're the sick one, and so here are my prescriptions and what you should do and how you should live. And it was coming from less of a lived experience and more, I don't really know how to describe it. There was just a disconnect between their understanding of the value of what it is that they were recommending. And so we felt like demanding that recovery from our team was the best way to ensure that they would be able to show up for the people that are suffering in the world, saying, I can't do this on my own. I don't know how to get my life together. I need support. And to go into an environment that's where the team is struggling with addiction, with their own codependency issues, where it's, like we're all family here and things could get really messy and unsafe. It's a big responsibility for us to meet those people from that place of safety. And so our own recovery is the best we can do to ensure that we're showing up from that place of integrity for the clients that are trusting us with their care.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel, in just looking at, some of the more traditional approaches from years previous for addiction and recovery, do you feel like what you're doing is kind of a natural evolution based on what we as humans are learning about ourselves and what it requires to heal?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and I guess I would say that there have been so many wonderful models. I think what we really love about 12 Steps in particular is that it's a free resource. There are meetings all over the place all the time, but it demands a spiritual healing. It's for someone to get recovery, there's this need to work through the parts of me that are so resistant. And I was one of these people. So I was angry at God. I was resentful. I called myself a recovering Catholic. I grew up with so much shame and black and white thinking. And if you do the right thing, you're good. And if you do the wrong thing, you're bad. And so it was a really powerful experience for me to begin an exploration of what a connection with God could look like outside the context of religious ideas. And so, we love 12 steps, cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT, motivational interviewing. There's so many of these modalities that have really served people and helped them. For us, though, we're not wanting to say that this is the right teaching style, or what you need more of is more worksheets and more CBT, but we're wanting to get people back into themselves so that they can feel a sense of safety within themselves. When they can get to that place where they can reunite with an authentic experience of self, feel safe enough within themselves, then the educational information, the deep therapy work is going to land in a safer place within them, as opposed to them still feeling like their nervous system is fried. They're constantly anxious. They're stressed out. They're worried if they're going to get it. How am I going to stay sober the rest of my life? And now I have to come up with the worksheet of the 10 most harmful consequences of my addiction. We wanted to create something that allowed people to drop in to a space that really was rooted in acceptance for them, in safety, and in awareness, because people are really coming in a lot of denial. And so to help raise awareness to some of those parts of them, knowing that shining a light on their denial isn't a shaming process. We're not saying you're bad for being in denial, or you're bad for being dishonest or manipulative or stealing from your family. All of these things can come with the territory, but people can be so reactive against facing those truths that it keeps moving them out of the recovery domain. So to say that this is a natural evolution is sweet. We hope it is, but yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, I guess I would add to that. Just I think that there has been an evolution of the awareness of sort of bottom-up approaches. So for a long time, people were working cognitively, and there are gains that can happen there. But in terms of someone really integrating a change, there often needs to be a felt shift within the body that they can live into. And so we do a lot of experiential work and then bottom-up approaches. Sundo is a perfect example of that. So that breath work, part of the evolution for me when I was a young therapist years ago in training, I would notice that talk therapy could get clients to a certain place that they actually weren't prepared for within their own bodies. And so I recognized that the fear that they had was warranted, that they in a sense didn't have the inner resources to be with that grief or to be with the difficult feelings that were coming up. And so I wanted to start getting them on the floor and practicing with them and helping them learn to breathe and develop that strength within the nervous system to be in the relaxation response. And so kind of picking up on what Mike was saying, when we start out the day with that work, then that creates a safety in my inner experience where I'm now available to my emotional process and to doing work. And it has been an evolution. And then in our experience too, it's been an evolution to see the rewards. We didn't know in the beginning how it would take, if people would try and if they would practice and what the results would be. And it's been really extraordinary to see people who've been otherwise stuck or in other treatment spaces and not getting the results that they want, to really see their life open up and them really thrive. So
that's beautiful. And then when those emotions or past hurts or triggers bubble up, they have that kind of strong foundation in order to deal with that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that I was somebody that felt like I was saying I was waiting for something outside of me to unstick me. It was the same thing with ideas. I was going to AA meetings and I would sit in the rooms and I would think, why have I not gotten this yet? Why am I not sober yet? Why isn't this working for me? There must be some flaw in how I was created. There's something wrong with me that's preventing me from getting it. But what I wasn't looking at was that um, it was natural for it to be hard because I was going to my dealer's house before the meeting, getting high in the parking lot, and then going into the meeting thinking, this is going to be the one that changed my life. Like it was, there were structural changes that I was needing to make to my life that would allow for some of those ideas to really land. And so to create a space that prioritizes the regulation of the system, like Greg is saying, that bottom-up approach to really get people into a space of reconnecting with themselves before diving into some of that deeper work has been extraordinary to see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was reading a little bit about you guys and your work, and you describe addiction not as an enemy, but as a portal to awakening.
Mm.
How does reframing addiction in this way kind of shift that healing journey for your clients?
Mm.
Yeah. I think to get back to how much shame people can feel when they find themselves in a pattern of behavior that they know is self-destructive and can't seem to find a way out of that pattern. So many of us have grown up with these ideas that if you're bad, you should be punished, and if you're good, you should be rewarded. And so when I found myself in addiction, it's natural for me or other people struggling with an addiction to imagine that shaming myself, that I could feel bad enough to get to a place where I will no longer want to do this thing. But it's really this misty trap that keeps me stuck engaging in the same behaviors that I'm feeling so ashamed of. And so who is it? There's an author,
David Hawkins.
Yeah, David Hawkins. He talked about one of the wonderful things about addiction is that it's the only disease that requires a spiritual transformation for healing. That if I'm wanting to get well, I have to pursue this reconnection to spirituality and to higher power, and so that's really that portal that we are so excited to see people move through. Is that when they can set down their drugs of choice. Abstinence is a great start, but it's really just a necessary prerequisite to then begin working on some of these deeper, more underlying causes and conditions.
That's so wonderful. You also talk about resistance as a theme, resistance to love, resistance to presence. I just thought that was profound. So, how do you work with your clients for them to recognize those points of resistance that they may be presenting, and then how do you take the next step with them to help them gently undo that?
Yeah. Well, so that's a real process and a journey. And in that is obviously going to be required a good deal of trust and safety. So part of that work is so Michael mentioned denial early on. So part of my resistance, one of the ways in which it might show up is in my denial. And a really seasoned therapist who's working with people that are struggling with mental health and or addiction issues, like a loving way of holding this denial is that when I'm in my denial, I only want to see certain parts of the picture. So there are parts of the picture that I'd rather not look at, and I probably don't want other people to show me about. And even if someone shows me, I'll call it something else if I'm in that really defensive posture. But what a good therapist will help a client do is begin to see some of those aspects of the picture that they're discounting. And then so we're in a process of slowly, kind of gently breaking down some of the denial and raising awareness. But it has to be done from a posture that's really loving. So it can't be like, why aren't you looking at this? Or can't you see what this is costing you? And so forth and so on. Because a part of them actually knows they're just not ready to contend with it yet. But when you meet them in that posture that's like firm and loving and kind and gentle, and you show them these things, they can feel that they have the support to now approach it, which is something probably before they felt very alone before it. So it's certainly a process. It's not something that happens all at once. And there are very subtle and powerful ways that people are engaged in denial. And we have to work very gently to just sort of lift up the sheets and see more what's actually there.
Well, like Greg is saying, when we can do that and just notice it, right? Like, oh, wow, I can really hear how much is coming up for you in this, or how hard it is for you to acknowledge these things. It can be such an emotionally corrective experience for a client who's been faced with so much ridicule or shame for having been in denial in other areas in their life, and being told that they're wrong for not seeing it, or how could you do it this way or not do it that way. And so for people to have their denial exposed is such a vulnerable and scary experience. And so for us on our side, when that happens, to provide the space to say, of course it's there. Why would it not be there? Right? And so letting them feel some safety in their own resistance can be a really great starting point.
Yeah, and getting oftentimes it's very empowering for a client to be able to move from being in denial to owning, my God, I don't want that thing. Mm-hmm. Or I am so resistant. I said I'm coming for recovery, but it's the last thing in the world that I actually want. And I said I want to feel better, but I'm noticing how much I love complaining. Mm-hmm. I love it. I would never let go of that. Mm. And so when people can really start to own things that are oftentimes hidden, not acknowledged, or described as otherwise, it can be really empowering, because now I have the awareness. It's not just I'm plagued by the depression or anxiety, but I actually sometimes maybe I get high off of high stress situations and I'm drawn to them. Or I really, I get my kicks complaining or gossiping, or sort of like
playing the victim.
Yeah, playing the victim in a situation. And so all of these things have to gently be seen, but seen from a place of love and care. And then the client can begin to identify some of the elements that are making their life so despairing, and then they can begin to work with them in a constructive way.
And I'm sure it must be a little disconcerting for some who come. They haven't. I mean, that's try to word this the right way, but
yeah,
they they probably, there's that deep internal conversation, but then you also have, as judgment from people around them in their lives, and then all of that combines, and then they show up, and you guys are wanting to tell them that they're safe. There must be a transition period there where they have to come to with that.
Yeah, that's a very wise statement.
Well, Greg started out by saying it can be a process, and one that requires a lot of trust, right? So this is something that takes a little bit of time for people to settle into.
One of the forms that often plays out, which is, again, can be really healing for a client, is to become very angry with the process and with the therapist or counselor. And then when the therapist or counselor doesn't take it personally, but just says, wow, I really see, how much that's upsetting you. Can you tell me more about that? What's most upsetting about that for you? When we make that move, then it's like, oh my God, my whole life, everybody shamed me for my anger. Or, I had to hide this part of myself. I felt so bad about it. And here I am. And they're just seeing it and acknowledging it and working with me. And then all of a sudden, wow, another layer of trust has developed. And so it's a little bit of a process, little by little, and often clients have to reject, be upset, or conversely, the ones that more want your approval will oftentimes do a posture of kind of like trying to show you how it's working so well. It's like the flight to health, like, you were the best therapist I've ever had. I don't need to see you again. Something like that. And so there's a lot of ways in which that process kind of gets sorted out, but we really hang in there. And the steadiness of our breath work each morning, because Mike and I, we practice, and we have a community that practices before treatment. So our call time is 5:45. And the steadiness of that work helps us hang in there and not and not engage in a reactive way, but really bring to the best of our ability the most loving presence that we can.
Yeah, and despite all of this practice and breath work and grounding, we're also human. And so when someone gets upset and says that they don't like you, or that they hate what
or
it
they
is that you have to
accuse
say,
you,
like it's only natural that we might feel some tension in our body, or like our palms might get sweaty, and
our
so
voice.
our voice can get shaky, and having that practice to really ground us in something that allows us to stay present in the midst of that tension can be so powerful for a client who's maybe even used their anger in the past to bulldoze people into getting what they want and making demands. And so our hope is that we can be witnesses to these clients' processes and create the space necessary to allow them to rework some of those things that have been self-destructive or unhelpful or dangerous even.
So describe to me a typical day for one of your clients, and they're at your treatment center. How do you tell me about how you structure a day for someone who is beginning, maybe in the middle stages, and is getting ready to step out and
Okay.
begin
Yeah.
again?
Well, so the structure of the day, there's different levels of treatment. So somebody might be attending a residential program, and Mike and I have worked in residential. We're getting ready in the new year. We're planning to expand into residential, but right now we've been doing day treatment and IOP. So there's different levels of care in terms of how many hours somebody would spend. And typically when they first enter into treatment, it's more, and they taper off. But what we've tended to do is start people off with the somatic practice, because that gives them the grounding and enough feeling of safety within their own body to then engage in some of the more enlivening and challenging experiential work we do. So and then we have a really outstanding curriculum. We have Inner Child, Inner Voice. We have the Empowered Living Teaching Series. We have Mindfulness, Loving Self.
Healing through creativity.
And then the Sundo practice. And so a client would go through all of those experiential processes, and then we also do heart math, which is can help somebody develop heart rate variability and heart coherence. But then maybe to speak to the question that you were asking in terms of middle stage and later stage, often what happens in the therapeutic world is people, and this isn't, I'm not making a blanket statement, because there's a wide range of what happens in the therapy space, but oftentimes what happens is a therapist will meet a client and somehow get pulled into their system, meaning their work will be primarily to affirm the client. And there's a constructive part of that, but there can be a part of that can be destructive if the client is doing things that are injurious or manipulative or not helpful to themselves, to simply affirm them and join their system, it's almost like pouring gasoline on the fire in some way. And so the early part of the relationship is often building that trust. In the second and into the final stages, typically as a therapist, we're moving in to be more disruptive from a loving posture. And we're really introducing more challenge into the relationship because now the trust is there. So the elements that the client wasn't willing to see in week 1, 2, 3, by week 6, we have that's a known conversation and an element that we're working on. And then what you tend to see in the later stages of someone's treatment plan, particularly through the practice of Sundo, it's almost like they came in with clouds, and there's like this light, there's this presence that's there. So the person is in every metric that we would think of, they're more vibrant by the end of their stay, by the end of the 12 weeks, and they're experiencing more inner freedom. They're feeling better in their bodies. They have more what I would call kind of like emotional wherewithal or resilience by virtue of doing the work. So they have a higher degree of tolerance, not like tolerating and bearing it, but they can really meet the challenges in life and stay centered.
Well, yeah. I also want to add to the group work is also really it's a powerful experience because so many individuals that are seeking therapy, the therapist or counselor just has that one person's frame of reference to work with, and so in a group setting, that client is forming relationships with other people in the group that oftentimes mirror relationships in their personal lives. And so we love doing family work, and we enjoy bringing parents and spouses and adult children into the mix. But the group work can be so helpful for us as clinicians to see parts of a client's process that they might not be bringing into the individual session work. And so we've had a lot of people that say, I just want to do individual therapy. I don't like groups, or I don't like speaking in groups, but it's such an important part of the process. And so the client's experience in the group settings can also change so dramatically over the course of time in their treatment episode, where initially people are coming in quiet and they might not offer much, and then they'll kind of get a feel for things, what it's like to share in a group setting. And then, obviously we want people to stay on their side of the street, and group work isn't about clients telling other clients what to do or, what choices to make, but to be able to say in a group, wow, when I heard you share this is what came up for me. This is what I made up about it. It was hard for me to not judge you or, to create this story about you, and learning those ways to communicate their experience while staying on their side of the street is so important. And when they can do that, it reinforces their sense of self-awareness, and self-worth and self-esteem. And so that light that just turns on for people is really powerful. I mean, you can almost see it on their face when they've really landed in a place of recovery, because they're working their program rather than on the lookout for all the things they don't like and looking for opportunities to complain about it. Yeah.
Hey guys, Kelly here. I wanted to jump in and let you know that you can find out more about my work by visiting my website at kellybuckley.com, or you can find my books on Amazon. Okay, back to the episode. That's very interesting. Because you go out in the world and you have to navigate groups of people,
that's right,
difficult coworkers, and so you're again going back to giving them the tools for success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those tools aren't how to be more convincing, or like how to make other people do what you want them to do. It's how do I take care of myself in the face of the world doing what it does.
Yeah. So talk to me about the breathwork piece of it. And for our audience, if you could explain just a little bit about what that process is, what it's like.
Yeah, Awesome. Well, so there's a lot of styles popular today in breath work. Some of them are really, I would say, Sundo is decidedly different in that it's not the rapid style breathing. I'm losing the name that
like the holotropic breathing.
Holotropic breathing that people are doing. So Sundo is a Korean Taoist tradition. So it's from ancient times in Korea, and it's a lower abdominal style of breathing. So to do that, our diaphragm has to really relax. And basically, if we watch a newborn or a young child breathe, if they're laying down, what you'll see is really different than when you see adults breathing. Adults are tending to walk around and their center of energy is higher. They're thinking a lot and they're stressed and they're carrying a lot of stress. And in a sense, they might be experiencing life as somewhat disembodied. So they're not really fully engaged with the center of themselves or the full capacity of breathing. But a child or a baby, what happens is they just do belly breathing. So the belly just rises naturally and falls. So we're trying to go back to that early state, like a baby. And then, the ancient science, they believed anyhow, this is long before some of the science that's emerging now, they believed that this center was almost like a primary brain, a place of thinking. And there's a documentary you can watch on Amazon, The Belly, something like that, that's now showing the science that there actually is brain matter that's in the gut. And this started emerging, I think, early 2000s, around the same time that people were doing what is the big, it got billions of dollars, the study for
like the microbiome.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's all this science now that's hearkening back to what they knew before. But the basic, if you keep it really simple, the things to think about is that a lot of times people are chest breathing and they can be highly activated or easily activated, which is more like a fight or flight state. And what Sundo is doing is reversing that and activating the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system. So that means we can go into rest and digest. We can feel safe and we can feel a degree of being centered. And the way that it does that, there's a warm up and a cool down section. Those are kind of like calisthenics, which help open the meridians of the body. And then there's a main chunk, which is breathing for 40 minutes. And Sundo is built on a belt system. So we're not fighting like in martial arts, we're just breathing, but it's a bit of a fight. Some of the postures are challenging the higher that you go in the level. And we're lengthening that breath work. But the original beginning ask is about 5 to 6 seconds, inhaling and exhaling, and making that steady. And I think that HRV studies are now showing if you do that, you'll go into like maximum coherence. So somehow they knew this pre all of our scientific data. They knew that this was really good for the body. And so we have the warm-ups and the cool downs, but there's that 40-minute section, which is this embodied breath work. And you'll be doing some postures, but the name of the game is, how do I stay in my center while I'm in a different posture? So if I'm turning this way, if I'm facing a challenge from this part of life, how do I face it but regulate and stay centered and stay in that feeling of wholeness?
How do your clients respond when they get into breath work and they see the value of it? My husband and I do breath work. I absolutely love it.
That's awesome.
And truly has been transformational.
Yeah.
I did not have an understanding of how powerful it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I also didn't understand that breath work is work sometimes, that it does take you a little bit to get into it. So your clients, what are they saying about it? How do they feel? It must, I mean...
It really runs the gamut.
There's a wide range of responses.
Yeah. So somebody could genuinely just ask, do I have to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because there's an aspect of, it really, it's an invitation to return to myself.
Yeah.
And if I like being on mental errands and thinking about things in the, future tripping, or thinking about the past, or this constant invitation to come back to myself, to my center, and to my breathing, that can be met with a lot of anxiety or tension. For some people, it's a huge celebration. They find it very calming or very vitalizing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's just it's so common for the people that are showing up for treatment. They've spent years, decades, escaping themselves, checking out, trying to artificially manufacture emotional experiences. I want to have a good time, I take this substance. I want to slow down and relax, I take this substance. And so coming back to what a natural baseline for them is can be scary. I haven't been here in forever. And so, we get some people that, they'll say, I already exercised today, I don't need to do it. And
Yeah.
we're saying, well, it's not an exercise, right? That the point isn't, we want you to be more flexible by the time you end your stay in treatment. It's that it is this daily invitation to come back to self and find that place of steadiness from within, so that when I am in life, my home base internally isn't an unfamiliar place to me, but it's a place that feels steady and inviting and comforting and known. And so it's less scary. So then when life does what it does, I can be less reactive, and I can be less afraid of what others might think of how I respond to something or another. I can just, there's a degree of clarity that grows the more that I practice. And so initially, the breathwork practice, it's funny, I was thinking about, why we start with the Sundo practice in the morning. And there have been so many times when people come in the morning and, we welcome them. Hey, it's good to see you again. And they just want to get right into, what happened yesterday and you wouldn't believe. And so the Sundo practice is a great way to start the day, to prepare their nervous system for the therapy later in the day. But it can also be a really important pause for them to sit with the things that they're just wanting to dump on, the treatment team. So for them to have that place where they can just sit with it and breathe and take care of themselves. Oftentimes what we find is the way that they communicate those challenges from the day before is very different than how they would have communicated those things prior to practice starting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. It must be so interesting to see kind of that progression in your clients, but it's almost like a reintroduction to themselves within. Sometimes we have to spend a lot of time unlearning all the stuff that we thought we had to learn in the first place. I'm just thinking about the breathing with babies, and there's also a thing about movement with babies, how they roll to their side, how they get up, that it seemed like we had all the tools when we came out of the womb, and somehow we thought we had to figure out something different.
No, it's interesting though, because, with, it's funny thinking about my kids, when my oldest, after he was born, there are these little milestones where it's like, oh, he can, lift his head up when he's on his tummy, and then, oh, he can roll over, and then, oh, he's crawling, and now he's pulling himself up on something, and now he can stand without support, and then he takes his first steps, and so there absolutely is that approach in treatment where these small steps of somebody making it through a practice without catastrophizing, or someone taking the risk of opening up about something that they haven't talked about in a long time, that these things deserve so much acknowledgement and praise, and sometimes I can want to discount that praise and acknowledgement because I should have done it years ago, or that like that it's fine, it's good, but it's not good enough, and so for people to buy into the necessary gradual process of recovery is such a win, because then these little milestones in recovery can be celebrated, and I can acknowledge that if I was able to get through this one with the support, I can get through the next one. Or, I felt miserable for decades, but I felt okay for 5 minutes today. And if I can feel okay for 5 minutes today, maybe I can feel okay for 10 minutes tomorrow. And if I can hold on to that, that potential for growth, acknowledging what I've done so far, it makes the process so much more exciting almost, rather than fearful, or what am I going to do when the next difficult thing comes up. It's that I've done some difficult things already, and I know how to get through those things. So it's really exciting to see the way that people can internalize the recovery practices and unlearn so much of what they've been taught. Because a lot of times too in the practice, people will feel like there's so many other things I'd rather be doing. I'm just sitting here, twiddling my thumbs, or I'm unproductive. I'm not getting anything done. And for us, we just see it as the most powerful thing that they could do for themselves is to cultivate that sense of connection to self, to true self, essential self, authentic self, but really get in touch with themselves, where they reside within themselves.
This is just my personal opinion, but I think that we've done a disservice to ourselves by the whole concept of being productive all the time. We don't give ourselves time to replenish, to fill our cup. We just keep going until we can't. I think we've made a mistake there in pushing that. One of the things that I was reading about is your recovery model doesn't focus on fixing. You emphasize embodiment and presence. And how do your clients who may have participated in other programs, how do they respond to that? And how does that affect the long-term sustainability of their healing?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's something really beautiful in this, and I think for somebody who's new in their journey, and it was true for me, a lot of the thinking that one can hold is like, I'm an absolute mess, or I'm
broken.
Like there's and we there's a whole other conversation we can have about the value of being able to identify with that. But I think there's something really wonderful that somebody can learn, that it's not like I need to fix me, or I need to learn all these different skills, but that actually the true one that I am inside, when I awaken to that one, that is the solution. So the solution is within me. It's not something outside of me that I have to, go and chase down, or be better, do better. It's more that as I begin to kind of undo these layers of conditioning and come back to my true self, and learn how to cultivate that loving presence within me, then many of these things that make up the rubric of dis-ease, they all start to fall away. So we've seen people, with depression that was resistant to every form of medication for 12, 15 years, go on to live like remarkably happy lives at the end of a treatment experience. And it wasn't because they became so skillful, or they changed, they got a new them. They just discovered who they were, and then learned to trust that and live into that more and more and more. And so I think that's how I would speak to what.
Yeah, and the notion of fixing is one that really looks at how to mitigate symptoms, and let's try to get you 3 points lower on the sadness scale, and bump up your happiness a couple points, and the fixing is it just feels very episodic. It feels less sustainable. And so this journey of transformation and healing is one in which, like Greg is saying, that reunion with my true self is one that I can love so deeply. I remember for years in recovery, feeling so put off by the notion of self-love, like, ugh, gross, love myself. That it just it kind of the kids say today, it gave me the ick, right? And but I could acknowledge that I did things that I was proud of, and that I could say it's good that I did this, or that I'm healthier than I was before. But this notion of self-love was just elusive. It just felt too cheesy, and so again, to maybe get back to this. Correcting this spiritual relationship that had been broken for me was what really was able to land me in a place of feeling a sense of love for myself that that I couldn't wrap my head around before, and that in that I can feel so much more confidence in moving through life, but not a confidence that I'm always going to get it right. Like a confidence that that it's okay to be human, that I can make mistakes, that I can fall short, that I can stick my foot in my mouth, that I can do embarrassing things and
still love myself. Yeah.
And allow for myself to be seen in the face of my mistakes and shortcomings and character defects. And when I got to that place, it was just such a giant shift in how I was living, because now I didn't have to live out this protective mask that I had built for so long so that others wouldn't see me a certain way, but that I could really experience what life could be as me. And I could be myself in relationships, and I could assess the quality of those relationships from a more honest place, because I was in the relationship now. Whereas before, I was just showing up as who I thought they wanted me to be.
Right.
So it's a powerful shift for people to go from, I have a problem that needs fixing, to this problem has the potential to lead me into a reawakening to my true self.
Mm. It kind of reminds me of the story of the Golden Buddha. I'm not sure if you've if you've heard of it, and a lot of the details I can't remember right now, so I don't want to butcher it too badly. But they covered the Golden Buddha with clay because there was invaders that were coming, and when they went to move it hundreds of years later, all these people had passed away. No one knew that this clay was covering up a solid gold Buddha. And when they started to chip away to move it, they discovered that it was gold on the inside. I remember reading this story years ago in a very dark place of my own. And I thought, oh my God, I'm gold. I'm gold on the inside. I can be gold on the inside. And I put this story up on my little cork board in my office, and I would return to it at least 3 times a week for a long time to remind myself of that we are the Golden Buddha, all of us.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's so beautiful. I love the way that you just owned that too and took it from the story and made it yours. That's just such a wonderful thing to be able to affirm and live into.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can safely say I was hanging on by my fingernails at that point in my life, but you find these pieces, these little nuggets of wisdom, and you see the possibility for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think what you guys are doing is that, and you talk about the melody of love. Always being, I love this so much.
Yeah.
Always being present, even when it's drowned out by fear or ego. Speak to that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a fun one. So we talked about the denial in the beginning, and in our thought systems and our teachings, and Mike and I were influenced by a lot of different ancient wisdom teachings, but we were big time Course in Miracles students too. And so there's a lot of metaphors about melody and awakening and that teaching. But so from our viewpoint, the resistance goes deeper than just I don't want to look at my parking tickets, and it's not my drinking that it's a problem. It's my spouse complains. It's there's all those kind of things, and then there's even glaring ones like I might be in denial that I'm going to lose my liver, or but even deeper than that, there's a primary denial, which all of those are almost just shadows compared to this main one, and that's the denial of the love, the denial of that melody. And so I drown it out with substances. I drown it out with my depression and with my anxiety, whatever it might be. There are ways in which that song is still playing, but I'm listening to a different tune. And I'm caught up in some tune. And in Buddhism, one funny way that they talk about it is they call it selfing, because in Buddhism, there's no real self, there's no sense of permanence. So depending on which way that you're reading Buddhism. And but the mind is always constantly preoccupied with versions of selfing, trying to create a self and create a narrative and get wrapped up in it. Well, each of us can tend to have our own versions of that, and of selfing, and they are all in some way a denial of this primordial song that's ever present, that's always been happening, and that song's actually ringing inside of me. It's just it's covered over. And so people don't, when they enter into treatment, in the medical world, is really looking through all of these descriptions of the sickness, and we have all these labels in the DSM. But my spiritual mentor, he said the DSM can be reduced to one dis-ease, and it was separated son or daughter of God. That was the entire disease. That was everything, was just that one. So there was only one healing that needed to happen. And so ultimately we're wanting to return to that melody. But in our treatment model, and we have our own treatment model, the stages that we progress through are denial, which is when we enter into compliance. But that compliance, I'm compliant with something that I don't necessarily agree with, or I'm doing it for the meantime, but I have to, or I'm doing it because I'm afraid. So I'm complying, but I'm not really fully bought in. And then you can move to surrender. And when I enter into surrender, my heart starts to purify, and then I awaken to the melody. And the fourth stage is celebration. And then the melody is in full bloom there. But we can really start to hear glimmers of it when we enter into the posture of surrender. And our treatment center is really set up to help people get beyond denial and compliance.
Okay.
And into surrender.
So, what if somebody forgets their song, and you have a client, they get to that place, they find that melody of love. But invariably things happen, life happens sometimes, and we backpedal, and how do you help them rediscover it when maybe they may feel a little cynical about the whole process because they've backpedaled?
Well, in some ways, the connection to that could be such a benefit for their recovery journey, just having had that experience. And we've worked with so many people that have had maybe years of sobriety, or have done well for a period of time and then relapsed. And so there certainly can be that cynicism, but really it's another form of denial that's taking root, saying, see, I told you were never going to get it, or it's not worth it, or you won't be able to. And that this doesn't work. It allows me to continue doing what I was doing. Right. And so so if someone is operating under that analogy of, the records that I'm playing or the songs that I'm listening to drown out that ever-present song of love, you could also look at it with the analogy of, what is it that I'm practicing, right? Am I practicing love and forgiveness and connection and honesty and recovery, or am I practicing judgment and I don't know, hatred and anger and victimhood. What are the things that I'm practicing? Because that's where I have the potential to intervene and make some new choices that get me a lot closer to the practices that I'm wanting to live out more fully. And when I live into those practices, then I'm kind of turning the knob down on these other songs that I'm listening to every day. And I'm allowing this other song to become more prominent.
Can I offer just one more thing, Kelly? That in a way, you're asking the perfect question to introduce our nonprofit. So we created a sister organization which is entitled Melos, and that's the Greek word for melody, and that organization is meant for post graduation. So it provides, through the medium of like a sober dance, the Sundo practice, meditation, our teaching series. We're working to provide all those things for graduates and for people who maybe aren't ready for a recovery commitment but need a soft entry point. But Mike and I have seen for all of the years that we've been in the treatment field that providers have gotten really good at the billing cycle. But when they're done with the client and they're done with that financial transaction, pretty much what people get, if they're lucky, is like a monthly pizza party or something like that. And so we've been working really hard, really kind of like on the off hours over the last 3 years. But we're finally starting to get some grant money, and we're going to open our doors in 2026 for Melos, and it's going to be a standalone studio for Sundo and dance and all of these social gatherings. But we think that recovery and really vibrant living needs a home beyond just the treatment space. That people, when they finish that 6 or 12 weeks, however long it was, however profound it was, they need something where they can integrate that into their living, not just a treatment episode. But now this is a way of life, because for each of us who's been afflicted with any of these challenges, it's going to need to be a way of life. I'm going to need, not that I need to be in treatment every day, but I need to anchor my life in the kinds of things that are going to help me hear that melody. I need to practice it. Otherwise, I'll be practicing something. It'll just be something very different.
I actually looked at your nonprofit website briefly this morning, and I'm so happy for you guys. I think that's the next logical step, and it's beautiful.
Thank
it's
you.
beautiful that you're thinking about just the whole person and the entirety of their life, not just that phase where they need to, seek treatment.
Yeah, well, working off of, the trans-theoretical stages of change. So, like pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and then maintenance.
It's so depressing.
Yeah, it feels like if maintenance is as good as it gets, okay. But then to then hit relapse and start that process over again, we got so excited about what's possible for people when they are pursuing a process of transformation, of real growth, real change, living into something completely new and different, and then to be imbued with this creative capacity to make life everything that I want it to be, and not say that I wish I could, but other people won't let me, but that I know what it is that I'm able to live into regardless of what's happening around me. And so that's the hope, is that Melos can really foster that that type of energy for people that are
and growth and change are a continual part of our lives.
That's
regardless.
Right. Yeah.
It's not just about treatment, right? It's not in general. When you look at our lives, if you can't adapt, and if you can't find your group where you have, you're aligned with the journey that you want to continue to take, you end up feeling kind of lost. Go ahead.
Sorry, we didn't have much time to talk about it today, but what you've talked about before around resilience is just so beautiful, and it's such a core component of people's work in growth and change, and whether in treatment or out of it, but to really move into greater experiences of resilience and that acknowledgement of self and what I've worked through is just, it's so powerful, and I know that you've done a lot of work in that regard too. So. Anyway, it was just coming to me as you were speaking. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And that was actually my next question. So I use in my work, I use gratitude as a tool in difficult times. And the conversation that I have with people is that gratitude is not for the blue sky days, right? Sure, you can be grateful on the sunny days, but gratitude, when it's really powerful, is when you are struggling. When you are looking for gratitude and you can anchor yourself to the present moment. Because that's when you're actively seeking out gratitude, you are here and now, and here and now you are okay. What piece does gratitude play in your program?
Yeah, well, it fits back with even what we were talking about before. Like, what are the melodies, the tunes that we're listening to? So gratitude, in my estimation, really gets me back to the song. And something that's really beautiful about gratitude is I can experience it in the midst of a great challenge. So gratitude, I can be in touch with this wonderful energy in spite of a given circumstance or in spite of something. So it's not I don't need to wait for conditions to arise for me to the right conditions for me to arise to experience that gratitude. I can make it a practice and a way of living. And then as far as psychotherapy goes, I think positive psychology has done a lot of really powerful work around the value of gratitude. And that's something more recently that we've been implementing into our treatment model too. So we think it's huge. We just, and I'll just say really briefly that people who are chronically ill and are not in a disposition that they like inwardly, you can hear it. You can hear the ingratitude. You can hear the complaints, and those are powerful. Those words are powerful. Those ways of thinking are incredibly powerful, and they're the stories and the songs that we sing back to ourselves. And so they tell us what our experience is. So we need to find a new story, a new tune, and gratitude's a really good one.
Yeah, and it's reminding me of a meeting, an AA meeting that I went to years ago. Someone said, oftentimes they'll pick a topic, there'll be a speaker and they'll share their experience, strength, and hope, and then they'll pick a topic, and gratitude is always a popular one. And so someone said that gratitude is an action word. And I don't know why, but for whatever reason, that really stuck with me, that I can almost offer myself just platitudes like, okay, I'm grateful for this and I'm grateful for that. But if I can find ways to put my gratitude into action, now I'm beginning to live from that place where I'm not just offering some vacant sentiment, but that I'm really trying to connect with that energy of gratitude. And so, yeah, that one was powerful for me. And when Greg was saying about when you're hearing people come in who are really struggling, you can hear that ingratitude, and it's these prayers that people are offering up every day about how unfair things are, and it shouldn't be this way, and it should be another way, and other people are wrong, and they're just worshiping at the altar of misery. And so to engage them in a practice of gratitude it can be a very powerful redirect into what else could be possible. So I always like that gratitude is an action word.
Two things. I spoke at a nursing symposium about, and it was specifically dealing with chronic disease in terms of renal failure. And so I had to do a little research and kind of dig in about gratitude and how I could apply that. and Martin Seligman, I think he's
Yeah.
like the
Oh yeah, yeah,
founding
that's it.
father of positive psychology,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so there's some writings from him about
Mhm.
just in terms of outcomes.
Yeah.
Can't change the chronic disease part of it, but in
Mm.
terms of healthy outcomes for people finding, a way through, a way to
Mhm.
find a way through with to have good days, even though they are suffering with a
Mhm.
chronic disease. And
Mhm.
gratitude
Mhm.
was proven to turn things around. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And in terms of gratitude on the difficult days, I will tell you one of the earliest things that I was grateful for when I started this journey of teaching people about gratitude in terms of resilience was I was grateful that my broken heart continued to beat. And
Mm.
when I would talk to people
Mhm.
about that, they would kind of,
Mm.
brace themselves. But that's the point that was the only thing I could find that day,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
was okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
In the struggle, you can find your way through. And it doesn't mean that you need to say, oh, it's rainbows and butterflies out. This is a great day.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's not that because my broken heart still beats that everything is wonderful, but that it's that there's the potential for a different experience. Even though
Right.
my heart is broken, that
I'm
there's an
alive.
opportunity to move into
Yeah.
something different, and I'm alive.
Mhm. It was a tremendously valuable practice for our family. I started
Mhm.
it because of my younger son. He was
Mhm.
11
Mhm.
when my older son passed away. And I think back now, I don't even know why I don't know how I came to that conclusion that that's what I needed to do. But I look
Mhm.
at my 28-year-old son now and I think, whew, thank goodness that we did that. Because
Mm.
he has that outlook for gratitude.
Mm.
Um, Looking ahead, um, what is your vision for the future of recovery? Because
Mhm.
and I'm not sure like what contact you have with other centers or if
Mhm.
other people are looking at this in in the holistic way that you guys are.
Mm.
What's the response been and what do you hope to see in the coming years?
Yeah, the term holistic has been maybe co-opted in some ways. Treatment centers that'll do a yoga class on Saturdays will, broadcast that they're providing holistic treatment, and they certainly could be doing other things. Um, and yet. Many of the treatment providers are beholden to payers, and big insurance carriers kind of dictate what they're willing to reimburse for, and the types of modalities that are provided. And so there is always that relationship that's trying to be navigated to provide the services that we see are most impactful for our clients, and ensuring that those are services that'll be reimbursed by insurance companies. But there has been such a powerful move into more embodied modalities for care. And so there's a lot of somatic healers and people that are seeing recovery as an entryway into transformation. And so the
Mhm.
hope is that this can be generalized to other areas where people can begin to recognize, wow, I'm really controlling, or wow, I'm a workaholic, or wow, I really struggle with shame. I don't need to have clinical depression or a heroin addiction to pursue personal development and growth. And
Right.
so my hope is that the principles and the values of recovery will take hold in spaces like Melos, and people will want to come together in community. And more young people now are working on their mental health and are going sober, not because they're struggling with an addiction, but because they're wanting to just be themselves and not use substances. And I think it's amazing. And
Mhm.
Greg likes to say that our personality can be very persistent. And so despite the abstinence, our personalities can also find ways to interrupt and get in the way of the type of life that we want to have. But My hope for the future of the treatment space is just that we'll continue to work collaboratively. We do have great relationships with other treatment providers, and there are so many people that are struggling, that need help, that are going to die today of overdoses or take their lives. And at the end of the day, we all just want to make sure that those people have a space to come and get the help that they need.
Yeah, if I could just add to, it's similar to what Michael's saying. I think with the Melos project, we're going to have a chance to really demonstrate such a vibrant community on the other side of a treatment experience. And I think up until this point, the world has really largely been looking at the treatment space as like, from a compliance standpoint, meaning I have to go there because I'm suffering so much, or this isn't working, and maybe I even put it off for 7-10 years, but I'm finally going to go in. What I can feel excited for is the excitement for people to awaken that there's more for them in life. So even, like the people who now are recognizing that they needed recovery, they needed it 10 years ago, and they were successful and thriving and doing great and running companies and doing all these things, but they wait until they're sort of forced. What I think is going to be exciting is for people to voluntarily say, oh my God, the life that can open up for me if I step into that integrity, if I devote myself wholly to that process, I'd be a fool not to. I can't wait to get in those doors. So that's the vision that I see, is that people are thrilled about the prospect of growing. And I think they just need to see more receipts of that possibility. I don't think there's been a real recovery community that's made it possible for people to just integrate that into their way of being so they continue to flourish. I love 12 steps. It's wonderful. And we're looking to give something that complements that and maybe picks up on some of the pieces that aren't in that community yet.
Well, and one of the things that Bill Wilson, one of the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, talked about prior to his passing. There's an AA publication called The Grapevine, and sort of like a newsletter. And one of the things that he was talking about later in his life was just how proud he was of the impact that AA has had on people that struggle with alcoholism, but that there was this whole world of emotional sobriety that he was hoping that the 12-step community would be able to support into the future. And we haven't seen that yet. There's certainly some wonderful clinicians and authors that have written books on emotional sobriety. There's a lot of room for the recovery space to grow into, human potential and transformation.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, I think you guys are taking some large strides towards that goal. I do hope you'll come back once you launch with the nonprofit in 2026.
Oh, yeah.
I would love for you to come back and talk to us about it.
We'd be happy to.
We'd be delighted to do that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we go, if you can tell our audience how they can find you, and we will have all your links in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. So they can find us online at embodiedrecovery.com. They can call us at our direct number, 888-372-3610. They can find information about our nonprofit Melos at meloscenter.org. They can, on the Melos website, they can sign up for our monthly talks that we do. So we present one of our Empowered Living teachings on the last Wednesday of every month. And so next Wednesday will be system theory. So people can sign up for that and attend via Zoom, or if they're in the Silicon Valley area, we're in Campbell, they can come join us in person. And then there's just a lot of other information on the Melos website as far as ways that they can connect to us and our work. Embodied Recovery is our treatment center. And so if anybody in your audience is struggling, needs help, or has a loved one that could use some support, they can reach out to us through the website.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, you guys. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I just loved our conversation.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, we did too. We're really grateful for the time.
Okay, take care, you guys.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me today on Broken Beautiful Me. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and insightful. Remember, every scar tells a story, and every story has the power to heal. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. Your support means the world to me, and it helps spread the message of hope and resilience to more people like us. Don't forget to leave a review and share this podcast with your friends and family. Together, we can create a community of strength and beauty in our brokenness. Until next time, stay strong, stay beautiful, and keep shining.